is Gilgeous-Alexander. McCollum staying with him. Spins, gets inside. Left-handed off the glass. Oh, what a sweet move.
Giddy, tough spot. Backdoor. What a pass. What a play. And J-Dub picks the pocket of Trae Young. He'll take it himself.
This is Dart. You're listening to the Uncontested.
What is up, and welcome to the Uncontested podcast, coming to you live Wednesday, March 13th. I'm your host for the evening, Jacob Niffen. Got two dudes with me tonight. We got one Nicholas Crane, fresh back from Mexico.
What it do?
From the cartel.
From
Remember?
the cartel.
I hope he listened to Sunday's podcast so he has some context.
Yo.
You do look darker, Nick. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We also have Taylor Peterson here.
That for those listening to the podcast and not watching live, that was my attempt of a fake spit take. Hopefully I don't choke and almost die on the podcast again tonight.
That was hilarious.
That was
I personally kind of hope you do.
It was an all-time moment, and after the podcast, I'm not sure we've ever laughed harder, which really is saying something.
It was one of those things.
It was also horrifying.
I watched it probably 30 or 40 times, and even like the 39th and 40th time, I laughed just as hard as the first time.
I think Cominger said it best. It was a business decision. I got to a point where you can see me reaching for the mute button. It's like I'm either
it wouldn't
going
have mattered
to choke right
it
there.
Wouldn't have mattered.
Not be able to breathe.
The visual would have still been there.
It hit the camera.
Well, that's my point. I was reaching for the mute button, so I'm facing the camera, or I could have just like turned away and just on the carpet over here. Business decision at the time, and it resulted in me not choking live on the podcast. Instead, it was just a spit take that will live in infamy forever.
It's beautiful.
Good times.
We are brought to you by the Blue Wire podcast.
Sorry. Really quick. I know. But Smoot, he's not a longtime listener. He's not able to make the podcast, he said tonight, but it was so cool of him to join really quickly to be sure to give us a shout out for the happy 6-year anniversary to the podcast, which is pretty wild to think about.
We'll
do some reflecting on that.
We are brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network, also by Dave's Hot Chicken and Spark OKC. Tonight is the Spark of the Week, so make sure if you are in the live stream tonight in the chat, get your Spark of the Week take in the chat. We'll read our favorite ones. No Thunder game tonight. They played last night against the Indiana Pacers, where we did not podcast. We're going to wait till tonight to talk about it. Not the best game in the world as the Thunder dropped it to the Indiana Pacers, but we will talk about that momentarily as well. If you are in the live stream tonight, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure while you're here, just hit that like button at the bottom. That would mean a ton to us. Helps out the algorithm a lot as well. If you're watching the YouTube video, maybe on Thursday before the Thunder take on the Mavs, it's also a great time to hit that like button. Give us a comment. Let us know what you thought of this episode. I always love going back and reading the comments that people drop on the show. And if you download the podcast version of this, we've been getting a lot more 5-star ratings and little reviews on the show. So please continue to do that as well. It means a lot to us and just helps more people find the degeneracy of the Uncontested podcast. Gentlemen, before we talk about the Indiana Pacers game, Nick, it was 6 years ago when we decided to hop on some microphones and talk about some
We didn't hop on microphones. We hopped on the
phones.
A pair of headphones that happened to maybe have a microphone, and if it didn't, you were talking through the MacBook.
I remember
not looking at each other's faces. We were talking like via Skype at the time, I think.
Goodness.
Yeah. Nick, do you remember the team that we were covering at that time?
I know Anthony Morrow was on the team because that was supposed to be like our big first episode that never
ghosted us,
never came through.
I forgot about that. He did ghost us.
That was a Paul George Thunder team. Yeah,
Paul George,
Russell Westbrook, and Carmelo Anthony. Westbrook. Because that was one of our first
playoffs.
Yeah.
So that was
February of 2018 is when we all kind of came together. I believe our got together. I believe our first actual podcast was like early March, though.
Yeah,
It's right
March
around this
12th.
time.
March 12th.
Yeah.
Yesterday was the 6th year.
Golly. Life's so different 6 years later.
I
Do you
remember
who we played in the playoffs that year?
Jazz.
Utah Jazz. That was the Donovan
that was
Mitchell
not fun.
series.
Yeah.
Melo getting benched for
Oh, God. Jeremy Grant.
Jeremy Grant.
Boom. Ding, ding, ding. We got a winner.
Was a wild time back then. We've come a very, very long way.
I
in
remember before the first podcast, we were kind of like thinking about microphones. And I ordered some microphone off Amazon that was like really, really cheap, thinking like, oh, hopefully this will work and be better than my phone. And it was like, I wasn't even using my laptop at the time. It was some mini microphone that like the TikTok people use that just plugs into the bottom of your phone. And I was like so confused as to how I was going to speak through it and still hear. And I think I ended up just not even using it at all. Just ridiculous. And now here we are with our fancy schmancy equipment.
It's crazy.
It's crazy
Fun
to me
times.
to think not only like the growth of our show, which has been incredible, but how many iterations of this team we've seen since we started podcasting. We started covering a contender shortly after the Andre Robertson injury. We started this podcast covering a team we thought was Western Conference Finals bound. Got rid of Carmelo Anthony in the summer. Then we covered the Russell Westbrook, Paul George year. Then we covered the complete like annihilation of that team where they just blew it up, went the rebuild route. Vividly remember coming home and sitting down to do the Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook trade emergency pod with you guys.
I remember you calling me when I was at the gym. You're like, have you seen your phone? It's like,
Yep.
no. Russell Westbrook just got traded for Chris Paul.
Nick
I remember
called me
Nick
on Paul
yes.
George night. Yeah.
Yep, like 20 times
I was
when you were in
asleep.
Boston.
Well, that's what made me second guess my Paul George being on the team, because that means would have had to have started before Oklahoma City traded for him.
No, that's not true.
No, you blew me up when they traded Paul George away.
No.
Yeah, you did like
Did I?
20 times. Remember,
1
Jacob was in
a.m.,
Boston.
buddy.
So
They
we
were on
didn't start
vacation.
podcasting until after Paul
PG
George
was
did
here.
OKC.
I know it's
Yeah.
all like blending together.
God,
But yeah,
it's weird.
correct.
I
So
know.
like, so like I didn't even
so
together. So whenever Paul George was traded to OKC, I remember where I was. I was actually living in Oklahoma City at the time, above Park Harvey Sushi in that little apartment complex there, right by Devon.
Yep.
At that point in time in my life, I didn't know who Jacob was then.
Yep.
Which is kind of
correct.
weird as hell to think about.
I know. It's
Because I got to know Jacob through Thunder Twitter back when it used to be great and not full of just spam accounts. And then Jacob reached out to me.
I got something in my bio.
That's been the
Crazy.
weirdest part for me is pre the Uncontested. I wasn't on Thunder Twitter. Like I didn't podcast, I didn't write, I didn't tweet. I was just like
Kind of
watching
changed your
games.
life, Nick.
No, sure, yeah.
we
you
would
changed my life.
text. We would text
No,
about
but
the games.
seriously,
Like,
yeah.
Starting a
And-
podcast and like getting deep into this kind of changed your trajectory. Like,
Yeah.
you still have the same
100%.
day job, like
Yeah.
the same field, but
Yeah.
just as far as who you are as like a basketball guy and a sports guy has completely shifted.
Yeah.
So Kamiar's in the chat. And I remember Jacob reaching out saying, hey, me and my buddy, he reached out and kind of told me a little bit about it and said, my buddy Kamiar is a really good friend of mine. We teach together. He's going to be joining with me. Do you know anybody who would be interested, who may be a good fit? I think we need another body or two, essentially. And I was like, I know the guy.
I
And
don't know
reached
why
out to
you
Nick,
thought of me.
and the rest was history because we would text about games and we
yeah.
were ball boys together. Obviously,
course.
we have a
Of course.
very tight relationship with the Thunder.
Yeah. Well, back then, Jacob Niffen on Twitter wasn't Jacob Niffen on Twitter.
That is correct.
You were
The
Thunder
mob.
Mob 405.
Made the name change afterwards.
Yeah.
And we
Um,
almost went with the Thunder Mob podcast.
Thunder Mobcast.
Really?
Mobcast.
Remember we kicked that one around for a bit.
What were some other names we thought about that didn't
I
get
don't
through?
remember.
I don't either.
honestly.
I just remember Kamiar saving us and coming up with the Uncontested. And
It's been
here
great
we
ever
are.
since. Yeah, we covered a incredibly fun startup team in the Chris Paul, Dennis Schroeder, SGA, Steven Adams, Danilo Gallinari team was a blast. Recently listened back to the world-ending / NBA shutting down pod that we covered when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, the Thunder Utah game, which was very recent. Taylor and Justin did that podcast. Listening back to it gave me a little bit of PTSD. I'm not going to lie.
I remember exactly another moment. I remember exactly where I was, what was happening. I mean, literally, we were in our home, cooking dinner. I just remember watching the TV and telling Summer, like, something's going on. I remember her coming in, and she's in the medical field. We both immediately just thought, like, it has to be COVID related. Sure enough. But yeah, that was wild.
Curtis in the chat says, play the Rudy sounder. JD's not here, so we don't have the sounders, but that is the ideal sounder for
How
this.
could you not remember that, though? Like, I remember exactly where I was, too.
Mm-hmm. I had the post game that night, guys.
Yeah.
That never happened. I got home from the gym, which is crazy to think about. I was in a gym with a ton of people with no mask on at the time. Just life very much changed. We covered the Under the Bubble. Mm-hmm. Any of the OG listeners here in the chat remember the Under the Bubble sounder was an absolute banger.
That was a lot of work, too. I'm proud of the work we put in there.
I don't know if you guys remember this, but our first ever live streamed show. Either of you guys know it?
Oh, what was our first live stream?
The first time we ever did a live stream YouTube show.
Oh, no.
Nick, any guesses?
Give me how long ago it was.
4 years. 3.5 years.
We've been doing live
that's crazy
YouTube for 4 years? Or
3.5.
live in general?
3.5 years since we did our first YouTube live.
Wow. Because before that, we were on whatever that, it wasn't video, but it was a recording platform.
We just did audio. We never looked at each other.
Right.
Dorian in the chats got it. It was the Poku draft.
Oh,
really?
We did a pizza giveaway. We did a
I remember the pizza
mock
giveaway.
draft contest. Our first ever live show.
I can't believe that was our first live show.
Was the 2020 November draft where they took Alexei Pokusevsky. They traded Steven Adams day of draft a little bit earlier in the day. It's the first time we did a live stream, and we never looked back after that.
That is so cool.
We covered the team through 2 tanking years. And then now covering, as of about 20 minutes ago, the number 2 team in the Western Conference.
I remember our first live interview that we did. You guys remember that? We were at the press in OKC.
Oh, yeah.
We made a special
Antonio
t-shirt
Daniels.
with Antonio Daniels.
We got Perry Jones. Third.
That was fun.
A lot of fun times.
Come a long way.
That's a quick trip down memory lane. Hey, if you're in the live stream or if you are watching the YouTube video later, you can drop it in the comments. Or if you're listening to the podcast, you can tweet at us. I would love to see, for our listeners, when did you start listening to the Uncontested? When do you remember what season or what events was going on where you first started checking out our show? Would love to hear that. So drop it in the live stream chat, drop it in the YouTube comments, tweet at us, whatever. But I want to know when you guys started listening to us, just to take us on a trip down memory lane. That'd be great. Okay, let's talk some basketball, boys. Thunder drop a home game. Nick, first home loss since?
January 29th.
That's kind of wild.
Yeah.
That
Second since December 23rd.
Holy
Crazy.
crap.
Yeah.
That's awesome. They dropped their third one since that date, 121-111 against the Indiana Pacers. Whenever we do these post-game breakdowns, we like to start with big theme, big takeaway. What's the headline on the paper the next day? So what do you guys got?
T-Pill, let you lead off.
Oh,
Because you got the game wrong on the predictions. I'd love to hear what went wrong.
I did.
Taylor.
I'm going to be honest. I'm very anxious about the rest of my predictions throughout the remainder of the week because it just seems like a game that the Thunder will respond from. I'm afraid I maybe got these first 2 games flip-flopped. my biggest takeaway, I think, is just that the Thunder were completely outsourced from the very beginning. They shot 43% from the floor and 37% from three. Granted, the Pacers only shot 32% from three, but they shot 54% from the floor. The Thunder were just not hitting shots. There were so many smoked layups. I know Jacob, I believe, was tweeting from the account last night and mentioned all of those. It wasn't one specific player. It was literally just about everyone. And there's a lot of like sub themes I think we can even go into from there. But ultimately, the Thunder just didn't play their brand of basketball. They looked out of sorts, starting Gordon Hayward and not having Dub in the lineup. And I think that just kind of led to a slow start. Even as we saw this resilient team try and make those comebacks we've become so accustomed to, the Pacers had an answer every single time. So props to the Pacers for that. But at the same time, I don't think the Thunder played their best brand of basketball, and that's going to happen here in an 82-game season, almost a series.
Yeah.
It'll be a long-ass series.
Jeez, no kidding. Yeah, for me, it just felt like, for lack of a better term, Indiana had more juice. It seemed like there were so many plays, like especially, it felt like there was a ton of catch a rebound, kick down court, and the Pacers had a dude kind of like not necessarily cherry picking, but like running the floor quicker than Oklahoma City was getting back on defense. There was other plays where it was like, normally Oklahoma City makes that, but the Pacers are like playing with pace and juice and tenacity, and that pass actually got through instead of being tipped and then maybe picked off by somebody. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's a game to have any concern over. Like, the Pacers are not a bad team. Like, their record, they're actually like 500 on the road coming into that game. So you'd think like, oh, a great home team and a pretty awful road team. But they're a good team. Like, they're a team that can score a lot of points. If you've watched the Pacers this year, their fatal flaw is scoring 130 but giving up 140. And if you can't score the ball at a really high level against the Pacers and keep up with their offense, no matter how good your defense is, because they're going to score on you, you're kind of in a bad spot. Oklahoma City is scoring 111 points. Just on most nights against this Pacers offense, is not going to get it done.
Agreed. Two big stats jump out to me that kind of tell this story. Actually, three jump out to me that tell this story, guys. Number one, the Thunder only forced 9 turnovers. The Pacers outscored the Thunder in points off turnovers, 13-9. Fast break points, 23-3 in favor of the Pacers. That lends directly to what Nick had just mentioned. And points in the paint, the Pacers outscored the Thunder 72-52. Do
you have bench points?
It is not listed.
Unfortunately, we can add them up pretty quick because there were not very many.
24 OKC.
24 for OKC. Yeah. That was easy. And then Indiana is quite a bit more in that.
Upper 30s, I think. But it goes beyond the number. It was like every player that the Pacers played scored. Oklahoma City only got 3 guys off the bench that actually produced points. Not that points is the end all be all, but Pacers, like top to bottom, every dude was getting theirs.
For sure.
Seems to be a bit of a
agree
theme.
with the lack of juice comment. The Thunder I wanted to do a deep dive into this, and I don't know like how to manipulate the stats on the stats pages that I use because I don't have some of these like higher tier like subscription statistic websites. Like what are they, dunks and threes, and what's the other one?
Synergy and all sorts of stuff.
The Thunder started this game down 12-2. And I'd be interested to see what the trend is with how the Thunder play in the first 6 minutes of a game and the results of the game. Because it feels like if they are competitive in the first 6 minutes and it's close, they're going to win the game. And there's some games where they just come out flat. They lose early. And it's an uphill battle after that. They are the number 1 team in the league and coming back from double-digit deficits to win. But it's just like you can tell what performance you're getting from this team in the first 6 minutes of the game. And that Pacers game starts off 12-2. They call a timeout, come out of that timeout, get a Shea jumper to cut it to 12-4. But really just playing in like a 10-point hole the entire first half kind of did them in, I felt like. And I wonder what the correlation is there. But yeah, the Thunder just didn't have their fastball. the biggest thing is when you're missing your second best player and your first best player has a very uncharacteristically inefficient night, you're probably not going to win. When you're missing effectively your two best guys, when your best guy is super inefficient and has an off night and your second best guy is on the bench, you're going to have a tough time winning that basketball game. And that's just, to me, that's kind of what it boiled down to.
And that's something I was going to point out. I find it interesting looking at Shai's stat line, because if you watch the game, it certainly felt like he was forcing a lot. The Pacers were packing the paint. Obviously, there wasn't a lot of options for Shai when he's driving to the rim in terms of the Thunder shooting poorly from outside and spacing the floor, but also just the off-ball cuts that he's become accustomed to, especially with J-Dub in lineups. Taking him out really kind of affected, I think, the different kind of lineups that the Thunder throw out on the floor, even with that second unit. But Shai still had 30 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 12-27 from the floor. If you told me that, I'm thinking like that's probably a pretty competitive game for OKC.
12-27 is pretty bad.
Well, for Shai, for sure. But then you look at the 3-point percentage. 1 of 7 from the floor. Only 6 free throw attempts. He had more 3-point attempts than he did free throws. I don't have that stat pulled up either, Jacob. But the last time that happened for Shai, I'd love to know when that was, because I feel like it was probably a long time ago.
Yeah.
Not a great performance from Shai at all. And it seems like he's getting more and more frustrated. I actually missed this. I saw this today, I think on Twitter. Somebody said that like you can see Shai at some point in last night's game during a timeout, like kind of mouth, "I'm tired." And it certainly seemed like it.
Can't blame him. I played pickup Monday night for 2 hours for my first time in like months, and I'm still tired.
You're also not an elite athlete as much as you'd like to think so.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate that. Just tell the whole world.
Although you did compete in Summer League a few years ago, it's different out here in the 18-game season.
It's a good point.
Gordon Hayward gets the nod to start. Nick, how surprising was that to you, considering that Cason Wallace has just been the spot starter all year? And what does that tell you that they decided to go with Hayward?
It didn't surprise me because of the same answer to the second question. They just want to like see what things look like. Like at some point in the playoffs, you're gonna probably have to make that decision. Like, especially if this team plays multiple rounds, there's a decent probability that somebody's gonna miss a game. And with Oklahoma City, doesn't matter if it's the point guard all the way to the center. Like they're gonna probably slot the same 2-3 guys in their spot. Like if Chet goes down, it may not be like JWill or Bismack or Muscala they put in. Like it could be a guard and they go small. I just think it was an opportunity for Mark and the analytics team and the rest of the staff to see what Hayward looks like as a starter. And to be clear, you can't take anything from one game. So I wouldn't be shocked if at some point, if someone goes down, you see Hayward again. Like you've got 4, 5, 6 Cason games on the docket now. Like wouldn't surprise me if the rest of the year Hayward took those reps just to get more data points. That's all it is to me, like truly.
How do you think Hayward did in that spot?
I mean, it's slow start. It's easy to say that, it didn't work with Hayward in the starting lineup. It's been a lot of damn slow starts for this Thunder team with the regular starting lineup of late. So I don't know. Like I think people want him to be this guy that has this 20-point scoring outburst or averages 15 a game like he did in Charlotte. I'd almost argue the fact that he, like against the Pacers last night, took 4 shots, was 3 of 4 from the floor, 1 of 2 from deep. Like maybe that's his ideal role. Like I don't know if you want him shooting 15 shots. Like I think in the playoffs, if things start working with him, maybe he's getting praised for playing a small role and not forcing things. Whereas right now people are like, they just want him to do this big thing and have this big game. Maybe it's not his role here. And that's okay.
So totally agree with you. Want to offer a little bit of pushback and get Taylor's thought on this. In a game where Dub does not play, 4 shots in 30 minutes just isn't enough for me from Hayward, especially when in the same amount of minutes, Giddey takes 15. Now, Giddey was 7 of 15. That's not like awfully inefficient. He was 1 of 2 from 3. That was fine. Felt like the misses Giddey had were very, very easy makes that just didn't go. and that can be frustrating. Like the first play of the game is a reverse layup that like you should make 9 times out of 10, like just hung it short. There was a handful of those. I think in a game where Dub is not playing, I would like to see more shots from Hayward. And it's not that, like, I don't want him chucking stuff, but there were some plays where I thought the right play within the flow of the basketball game was for him to shoot, and he didn't. And it's still like he doesn't want to step on toes and he wants to be the ball mover. Taylor, I go back specifically to fourth quarter. I think 2 minutes left, Thunder down 8. Shea drives the lane, kicks out to a wide open Gordon Hayward, who has a corner catch and shoot 3 ready to go. Doesn't even look at the rim. As soon as the ball touches his hands, he swings it to the wing.
Touch pass.
Josh Giddey.
Not even necessarily a swing. It's not like he caught it, got in triple threat position, looked at the basket. He literally did a touch pass immediately without looking at the rim to Josh Giddey.
That's a shot he's got to take. Now, Giddey did score on a drive to the basket on that play, but that's a wide open Gordon Hayward spot up 3. He's got to take that one for me.
Especially when Hayward's
still getting used to playing the Thunder style of basketball and still wanting to be the ball mover and wanting to fit in. The smaller role, Nick, I think is fine. I think right now, as far as scoring, especially when Dub is out, the role is a little too small, and I think he's got to find that balance somewhere. Taylor, what do you think?
I agree completely. Like you mentioned, especially, sorry, I almost interrupted you there, but what I was going to say, especially when he's shooting so well from 3, I don't have those stats actually pulled up in front of me, but he has not shot poorly on a very, very small sample size from 3. He was 1 of 2 from 3 last night, 3 of 4 from the floor. Like, you have to take that shot. And I love the idea of wanting to make the extra pass and how he fits within the flow of the offense and some of the things that he's doing in terms of like creation. We saw him create a lot for other teammates last night. But I think you're spot on. He has to be more aggressive looking for his shot for the betterment of the team. There has to be the right balance there. And he had a quote after practice during media availability today that I found really interesting, where he kind of touched on that. And I don't have the direct quote pulled up in front of me, but essentially he said the very same thing. He's still trying to find his way through the team, but that Mark keeps encouraging him and ultimately wants him to be playing his best basketball come April. So I think that's why we saw him start in place of Cason Wallace. I love what Nick brought up in terms of we've gotten to see Case in that starting lineup. We know it looks really good, going not even so far back to the second half of the Memphis game on Sunday when Dub was hurt and Cason was the one who ended up starting and looked fantastic. Granted, it was the Memphis hustle, not really the Memphis Grizzlies, but I think the point still stands. All that being said, I think they do want those sample sizes, those data points, but also want to get Hayward more and more comfortable. But the only other thing...
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I know. I've talked a lot here. The only other thing I wanted to mention was you mentioned Giddey. And obviously, I've been very hard on Giddey on the podcast ever since like the beginning of the season. But after thinking about it for like 24 hours, the thing that comes back to me is like, okay, Giddey didn't have a great game, but he had a normal bad game. He had a normal bad game for Josh Giddey, like what we would have saw last season. And that's great. I think that's a very good thing. Still trending in the right direction. So those are my Giddey thoughts.
Nick, back to Gordon for a second. Let's jump to the other side of the court. Starting him last night did allow them to play a more traditional more traditional sized forward instead of really downsizing. He got the Pascal Siakam matchup. Just what have you seen from Hayward defensively since his stint in OKC started and last night? And how do you see that end of the floor kind of developing with him out there?
Yeah, I mean, he's not really a guy that's going to be a defensive stopper or defensive playmaker like Lou Dort in a one-on-one matchup. I have been really impressed with his ability. And like Mark doesn't run a simplistic defensive scheme. Like he runs some crazy stuff game to game. You'll like, who was it the other night? Phoenix, where it was like throw a double at KD every time and then scramble back as soon as he passes. And it's very complex stuff. Like a lot of nights, like the Thunder's defensive success is largely due to the fact the players are bought in and they play good team defense. But a lot of that's Mark running really good schemes, and they're hard to learn on the fly. Like Gordon coming in, like the most impressive stuff defensively from him, even if he would have like shut down Siakam one-on-one, to me, that's not what he's there for. It's like he can plug into any lineup with any combination of 5 guys. And he's already really figured out the rotations and who to help off on and like how to help mask weaknesses for certain players. Like that end of the floor has been really impressive to me. Like, I don't know if the defensive metrics, like analytics would say so, like his on-off numbers defensively or defensive rating in certain lineups, but the eye test says Gordon Hayward has figured out how to seamlessly fit in the Oklahoma City defense, which is promising given the offensive struggles or maybe the offensive fit issues that we've seen through the first handful of games.
I love that. Yeah, I would be much more worried if the defense was abysmal and he was chucking up a bunch of shots and getting 12 points a game. The fact that it's the inverse of that the defense has been really solid and the offense seems more of a comfortability issue than an ability issue, I think bodes really well.
That's something you can build off of for sure.
Exactly. But yeah, just a stinker of a game. Dub off the injury report as of this evening, so he will play in the late tip against the Dallas Mavericks. What do you guys need to see that you didn't see last night against the Pacers for them to get a W against Dallas in Oklahoma City late night Thursday on TNT? Don't just say shots to go in the basket.
No. I don't think it's that end of the floor.
That is one.
It's very similar to Indiana where Dallas can score in a hurry. And everybody knows what happened last time Oklahoma City played in Dallas. It was bad. The time before that, Oklahoma City won, but there's a 30-0 run. They just happened to be up huge to where they were able to overcome it. Any other game where you're not up 26 in the first half, like a 30-0 run puts you in the hole. There's like very clearly something with the Dallas Mavericks that Oklahoma City struggles to defend. And I think it's going to be, I don't care what the offense looks like for OKC. It's not going to matter if you can't get stops and you let the Mavs push the pace and score points in a hurry. And it's like, it's allowing shots at the wrong time that killed Oklahoma City last night against the Pacers. It was like you tie it or you get within 2 and then you allow a big 3 or you allow a little 5-0 run. With Dallas, with Luka, if he gets hot, that's not a dagger 3 or a 5 run. That's like an 11-12-0 run that'll put you away. So to me, it's all defense against Dallas. Like they have rim protection. They've got some guys that can defend on the perimeter, like PJ Washington, I think is a bit overrated. Like Mavs fan calling him P Jail. Like he doesn't have the defensive upside to be getting defensive nicknames like that. Like he's an okay or a solid perimeter defender. I think it comes down to Oklahoma City's ability to slit on the Mavs offense.
And the last time they met up, it was that first quarter.
Yeah.
That really just put Oklahoma City in a hole. So I'm very intrigued to see how they start tomorrow night. I don't know about you guys. I was thinking about this a little bit today. Maybe this is a really, really stupid thought. And if it is, feel free to tell me.
Probably is.
Thank you. Nick just shitting all over me on the 6-year anniversary. Man, thought I was going to get an anniversary gift. Instead, I get this.
He hasn't made fun of your bald head, though, which you were worried about before we started the podcast.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate that. I think I'd kind of like to see J-Dub on Luka to start this game and Dort on Kyrie.
Ooh.
I'm almost of the thought that like Luka's going to get his and J-Dub has the strength and the length to bother Luka. I mean, Dort has the strength for sure, but not as long as J-Dub is. And Luka's going to cook whoever. But if you put Dort on Kyrie and slow him down, and then Chet's on that back line slowing people down, like, I wonder if that's like the better way to approach the Mavs. Is like if Luka wants to shoot the ball every time down the court over J-Dub working his ass off, that's fine, but we're going to cut off the water to everybody else and shift Lou over to Kyrie. I've wondered if that's maybe a defensive strategy they try to deploy.
I actually really like that. Nick's all in on the live. I don't even know what you call those.
Animations.
Animations, yeah. Fair. No, I'm with
I
you.
didn't get one that time, Nick.
Dang,
Sorry.
it didn't work. This is extra advantages to the people that watch the stream live. They
Yeah.
get to see.
And Nick's
little
been
extra.
able to like get those for the past 2 months now, and I still I updated my Mac and everything. Like none of us can get them to go either.
Not
It's just
catching
Nick.
it now.
Crazy. Yeah,
There it
is.
goes. Mine won't
can't
do it.
Mine won't either. Crazy. I like what you all mentioned. Again, the Thunder just need to get back to their identity. I think having Dub back certainly helps, but if he's if he's spending so much of that energy on the defense side of the ball guarding Luka, I worry a tad about what that does to the offense, but that also could open up the floor a lot more for Shea. So hit your outside shots, and most importantly, push the ball in transition. And that results from the Thunder playing solid defense, as both of you alluded to.
Dallas is up 13 as we're currently talking with 6 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter against the Stephen Curry-less Golden State Warriors. So the Mavs will be on the second game of a back-to-back tomorrow night.
Good point.
Any other Pacers Thunder thoughts before we move on to the rest of the show?
Hopefully they respond well tomorrow. And I will be 0 of 2 on the week. Yikes.
For what it's worth, if you would like to see the Thunder get their revenge against the Indiana Pacers, you can do that with us because we are having a live, uncontested official watch party Friday, April 5th, 6 p.m. at Dave's Hot Chicken in downtown Oklahoma City. Mark your calendars now. Let your significant others, your
Bring your
children,
elders as well.
your friends, your elders, your parents. Let them all know to come out to Dave's Hot Chicken on Friday, April 5th, 6 p.m. as the Thunder take on the Indiana Pacers. We'll have food and drink specials. We'll have giveaways. We're going to hang out, watch basketball together, cheer on the team. And then we will have a live podcast after the game out on the patio at Dave's Hot Chicken. It's going to be early April in Oklahoma City. The weather should be incredible. We'd love for you guys to come hang out, eat some great food, enjoy some Thunder fans as we gear up for the playoffs. That'll be a big game for standings. So come hang out with us. It should be a blast. Let's take our first break. We will be right back on the other side. Don't go anywhere. And we are back. And gentlemen, it is Wednesday night. So that means it is time for the Spark of the Week. Spark joy at Scissortail Park's family-friendly joint, Spark. Dive into their menu of burgers, bites, and cold delights, and don't skip the must-try BLC burger, pink fries, frozen peach club special, and rotating custard of the month. Located directly west of the Paycom Center, Spark is the best spot to hit before or after a Thunder game. If you park on the west side of the arena, just stop by Spark on your way in. It's right there on Scissortail Park. The weather has been beautiful. You can sit out on the patio, enjoy yourself a burger, some pink fries, and then head in to watch the Thunder play. We all know that 2 scoops or even 3 scoops of custard is better than 1. So be on the lookout for Spark number 2 and 3 locations coming to Chisholm Creek and Nichols Hills later this spring and summer. Taylor, I believe you've been eating Spark like a madman recently.
Like a madman. I will say I'm ready to sprinkle in some Daves for some variety. However, love Spark. I went there on my own here a couple weeks ago because I just had the craving again after they sponsored the podcast. And then last Thursday went with our lunch group that we have of some coworkers. They all were super excited. We had a wide variety of burgers ordered. In fact, it's inspired me to get a new burger to go away from my go-to order the next time I go. I'm really excited about that. And then, like you mentioned, an incredible outdoor area right there on Scissortail Park. We were able to enjoy the nice weather after we ate, did a little lap around the park, and then came back to finish our lunch break. So had a blast, great spot, and I cannot wait to watch some Thunder games there.
It's going to be a blast. We will actually be live podcasting from Spark after the last Thunder game of the season, the regular season. which is against the Dallas Mavericks. I believe that's April 12th, a Sunday. The game tips at 2:30, so at 5 p.m. if you are leaving the game, you can stop by for an early dinner at Spark and hear us record a live podcast previewing the playoffs. So it should be a great time. And now, gentlemen, it's time for the Spark of the Week. If you're listening in the live stream right now, drop your Spark of the Week in the chat. If you are watching the YouTube video at a later date, drop your Spark of the Week in the comment section. Taylor, Nick, as we head forward to the next 2 Thunder games against the Mavericks and then at the Memphis Grizzlies Saturday night, what is your Spark of the Week? Or who is your Spark of the Week?
I'm going to go with Mike Muscala.
Interesting.
Ooh,
Okay.
I like it. That's not mine, which is good. I was afraid you were going to steal mine.
No, I would never have a surface level take like that, Taylor. I'm kidding.
You would
I don't
never
know,
have stats to back it up like me.
I think that he, especially against Dallas, like you lean on defense, like you never want to get into a shootout with a team like that. But I think you will at some point need a scoring spark, and even games beyond Dallas.
No pun intended.
I didn't actually try to do that, but I'll pretend I did. I think he'll have one of those games where I love how people last night were angry that he played like 80 seconds and went 0 for 2, and he's the reason they lost. I think he will make, over the next 3 games, he will make 7 threes.
Jesus.
Ooh.
Is
That's
it
up
Spark
there
of the
with
Week
my,
or the Dave's hot take of the week?
Yeah, I was going to say that's up there with my Gordon Hayward. Will have 20 plus this week. Not looking great.
I like that one, Nick. I'll go next. My Spark of the Week, the guy who's been the spark recently, and I think will continue to provide a spark for this team, Cason Wallace.
Love that one also.
Had a career
considered
high against the Memphis Grizzlies the other night. Followed it up against the Pacers with I get the stats right here, 11.3 rebound, 1 block performance on 4 of 7 from the field, 3 of 4 from 3. The kid's a shooter, man. And he hasn't played a ton. He's been a bench guy all year, except in those spot starts. But he's just gotten better and better and better as the season has gone on. He's got more comfortable. He plays with a great pace, a great tenacity. Him and Dort out there on the court together is just like hell for opposing ball handlers. Since the All-Star break, Cason is averaging 7.5 points on 52, 49, 33% on the free throws. That's not great, but he's shooting 0.3 per game. But 52% from the field, 48% from 3 on 3 attempts a game. He's averaging over 1 steal a game. He's been a plus 2.5 on average. I think Cason's going to continue to be a big spark for this team, not only this week, but coming down the stretch and into the playoffs as well.
What's promising about those splits minus the free throws is like that's not far off from his season average. It's not like this guy is just like 12, 15 percentage points above his normal. Like he's a 51% field goal shooter and a 43% 3-point shooter. So like as impressive as All-Star or post All-Star numbers have been, he's really good even before that too.
Coach mentioned the other night that one of the points of emphasis for him this summer is going to be playing a little more with the ball in his hands, initiating offense, playing off the dribble. And I mean, he did a lot of that at Kentucky. I think it's going to make for an awesome summer league. And I'm excited to see how Cason develops. I think he's a really, really good player that in everything that's been awesome in Oklahoma City this year kind of goes unsung a little bit. I know we talk about him a lot, but it feels just like we're so focused on Chet and Dub and Shea and the roller coaster that's been Josh Giddey and bringing in Gordon Hayward and all these other things. And Cason's just quietly putting together a really badass season. And I'm excited to see how that continues for him.
And I do think he's just scratching the surface, which is really exciting. I remember the Thunder wanting to put the ball in Trey Mann's hands as well after his rookie season. Obviously, that didn't go quite as well. Not to say that Trey Mann's not still a great player, But I think it's going to play out much differently for Cason based off what we've seen from his time prior to the NBA. So I'm really excited for that as well. I can't wait to watch him hopefully live in Summer League.
Oh, yeah, we will definitely be there. Taylor, what's your spark of the week?
So David Skelton, friend of the podcast or a longtime listener, he actually spoiled mine here. He said the spark, the thunder is from Isaiah Joe. And he actually was tweeting about it last night, saying that he missed the Dallas Mavericks, Isaiah Joe, the one who just went crazy and made his arrival here a year ago last season. And that's kind of how we became accustomed to Isaiah Joe, and he continued it from there. Isaiah Joe's obviously been playing very well as a whole this season, shooting 45.8% from the floor and 41.3% from three on almost 5 attempts per three, which is incredible. However, the last 5 games, it adds up. It actually makes sense what our guy David is saying. There's a lot of ads that pop up here, so give me a second. In the last 5 games, Isaiah Joe's only shooting 26% from three on 3.8 3-point attempts. He's also only shooting 31% from the field because obviously the majority of his shots come from three, but on 5.8 field goal attempts. The thing I love the most about Isaiah Joe this season is we saw him not rely so heavily on that 3-point shot. He's doing so much more. He can put the ball on the floor. We're just seeing him move off ball and cut off ball and get some nice layups. Over the last 5 games, he's really struggled offensively. And so we've talked some about the Thunder bench over the past couple of games and how they haven't really been playing up to par since the All-Star break. And that's all led by Isaiah Joe, somebody who we kind of like quietly were thinking at the beginning of the season, this is a 6-man of the year candidate. And he's fallen off recently. So if Isaiah Joe can get it going again, lead that second unit, lead that bench, I think that's going to be huge for this team moving forward.
I love it. And I agree. I hope Isaiah can get it going again. That would be huge for this team. Even when you look back, Taylor, since the All-Star break, he is only shooting 34% from three on 4 attempts per game. And I feel like this is similar to last season for him, where he had that really hot season. And then after the All-Star break, just kind of started to tail off. Hopefully it's a blip on the radar and not a trend. We will see. Some sparks of the week from the chat. Taylor mentioned David's. Brennan says, Spark, JWill will bring a big edge to the bench production and attitude, especially against Dallas, I feel. He is going to be big. I love that one because it transitions us to the next thing I want to talk about tonight. Before we do that, though, let's take a quick break. On the other side, we're going to do a temperature check of the Thunder bench. We'll be right back. And we are back. Gentlemen, thought it'd be a good idea tonight to take a look at the Thunder bench. I thought about, like, do we look at stats, how they compared to last year? Who's the playoff bench rotation going to be? All these different things. I think the easiest way to do it is a temperature check. So let's do a temperature check on some of these bench players. Before we do that, though, we have to decide what our temperature scale is.
That's what I was going to ask. Are we just going like hot, mild, cold? Are we going like fever, body temp, hyperthermia? Like, what are we thinking here?
I think we got to come up with something for like trending up, trending down, staying even, but I don't know what the scale should be. And should it be a 3-point scale?
Let's do a crock pot. Let's do.
You a big fan of crock pots, Nick?
I do. Those meals are nice. You throw them in the morning, and so there's a setting.
What's your favorite crock pot meal?
Pot roast guy.
Salsa chicken tacos.
Ooh,
Pretty solid.
Okay. I can get down on a pot roast.
So pretend that crock pots had a cold setting. There's probably a crock pot out there that does have a cold setting. So you've got cold, you've got warm, which means just like keep it warm, so they're kind of just like leveled off, not up or down. And then you've got low and you got high. So you got 4 settings: cold, warm, low, which is still cooking, like you're still heating it up.
Yep.
And then high is like you're kind of expediting it.
Okay, Taylor, what's your favorite crock pot meal?
Not a big crock pot guy, to be honest. Never loved pot roast growing up. I'm a smoked meats and air fryer. I'm all in. Not big on the crock pot.
Nick, you ever had hot cocoa from a crock pot?
No.
Oh, you make some hot cocoa in the crock pot and you just set it on that keep it warm setting?
Yeah, just leave it. Yeah, that's.
I've had like queso in the crock pot, which is fine, but it does not
queso,
compare to.
You get some good. Throw in some that cubed Velveeta.
Yeah, but it doesn't compare
Can
to
of
smoked queso.
Rotella.
Taylor,
I'd rather just smoke that thing on the
Taylor,
smoker.
you're thinking like very niche things.
true.
Like you
Right.
can legit like throw stuff in a crock pot at 7 a.m. before work and come home and it's like a solid meal.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, very
Some
much
pot
so.
roast
and healthy.
some mashed taters, precious. Love it. All right, so we have cold, keep it warm.
I like
or no,
this,
sorry.
though. I like this scale.
What was it? Cold, keep it warm, low and high.
Yep.
Beautiful. Okay, so we got our scale. Let's go through some players. Let's start with the newest acquisition, Gordon Hayward. Nick, will lead off with you since you made our scale. Gordon Hayward, is he cold, warm, low, or high on our crock pot temperature check?
I'm going to go warm. I would say he has not been as good as I thought he would be holistically. I'd also say he has not been like disappointing. Like there's people out there that are like worst signing ever, should have made a bigger splash. Like I think your tune's going to change in the playoffs. But he also hadn't like exceeded expectations. So he's warm for me. I can't say that he's like rising. You can't say he's like cold or I'm out on him. He's the warm setting. Just keep it in there and see what happens.
That's what she said.
I saw Jacob's mind working there.
I would agree with Nick on this one, the warm setting. Nick, I would also say like he's not disappointing. I think the trend is in the right direction. I think if we looked at if we plotted his performances on a graph, it's not an up and down. I think it's a steady increase. But it's not the production I thought it would be. I thought it would be iffy defense and big time shooting and a little bit of self-creation. It's been solid defense, rebounding, assisting, more of like I don't want to say like garbage man type of stuff, but just more of the unsung hero type of stuff.
Almost glue guy.
Yeah, it's been a little bit different than what I thought it was going to be, but it hasn't been bad. So I'm with you. I'm going warm.
That was my first thought as well, but I'm actually going to go low because, like Jacob mentioned, we've seen him steadily start to get a little more comfortable.
That's what I meant. Low. I meant third out of 4. Sorry.
Wait, no, 3rd out of 4 is warm, right? You're keeping it warm. Low is you're starting to cook. You're starting to cook it low.
I had him backwards. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So I'm going with starting to cook at the low setting because we're seeing him steadily improve. And maybe this goes back to like my Dave's hot take of him getting 20 plus this week. That's probably not going to happen now. But I can see him start to get more and more aggressive. I don't know. I kind of was encouraged by his his media availability post practice today, where he talked about wanting to play his best ball in April. He's still trying to get accustomed to this team, but we're seeing him get more and more comfortable. And I think that scoring is going to come around. Maybe not to 20 a game, obviously, but I think he's starting to cook here a little bit. I'm going to go with low. Low cooking, I guess, is the way to describe that ranking.
I like it. Next temperature check goes out to I believe the players call him Unk. We got one Kenrich Williams. So from cold, then we have low, warm, and high. Is that right? Is that our scale?
Yep.
Cold, low, warm, high.
Yep.
Kenrich Williams.
I'm going to give you 2 answers. For the remainder of the regular season, I'm cold. Like I don't have a lot of faith right now in Kenrich Williams being a quality contributor. And that's not to say he's a bad player or he's not worth the contract, because his contract is so team friendly. I just think there's other guys with the way they're playing right now that are more impactful than Kenrich. Like probably 8 or 9 guys right now that I think are more impactful. Playoffs, though, I'm probably more of a warm to low. Like he hadn't shown me anything recently. Like frankly, last few months I haven't seen a lot
All
from
season.
Kenrich.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, that's really impactful. But I do think in the playoffs, like when the game changes a bunch, he will be super important. And so cold for now, but I don't believe this will continue to the playoffs.
That's fair. I also had cold. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of other answers to give here just based off Kenrich's performance on both ends of the floor, which has been really disappointing. It doesn't seem like he's doing the small things on offense, like moving off ball and cutting. He's obviously missing open shots. He's being left open from three and missing those shots, but also defensively, he's not quite competing at the same level that we've become accustomed to. So I have cold. I love your point there, Nick. Hopefully we see that turn a corner come playoff time.
I'm also going cold. I changed up my statistics here. Going back to the turn of the new year, which is a pretty big sample size, 32 games. Kenrich is 3.5 points, 3 rebounds, and an assist per game. Shooting splits, 41 from the field, 33 from 3, and 0 on free throws because he hasn't taken any. We know he is a poor free throw shooter. Bit disappointed by Kenrich. Nick, I know the stuff you just said about the playoffs. I'd have to say, like, if they went to a 9-man rotation in the playoffs, I don't know if Kenrich is in it right now.
I think he'd still be in it.
I do too.
I think it's like teetering on the edge.
Like, yeah.
I think it's Cason Wallace, Isaiah Joe, Gordon Hayward, and maybe JWill over Kenrich. And that might kind of depend on matchups.
Yeah.
But like Kenrich is if he's in that playoff rotation, he's at the very, very bottom of it. Just hasn't performed well this season, but we know his impact on this team. So,
yeah.
All right, next temperature check. I just mentioned him. We have Jalen Williams. That would be JWill, the big man from Arkansas. Taylor, why don't you kick us off for this one?
So for JWill, I also have low as in the cooking mode, the first cooking mode on the almost said pot roast, the crock pot scale, because JWill's been playing much better since coming back from injury. Those double lineups with him and Chet have been fantastic. I actually have stats somewhere. I'm not going to dig through all my screenshots and whatnot to find those. But JWill's certainly starting to string together some really promising games, and is a reason that the bench kind of has rebounded from a poor start since the All-Star break. So if I had Gordon Hayward cooking or on low as well, I would say JWill's like starting to get to the point where you're about to turn it up to high. You're about to like kind of kick the cookie into full gear and finish it up for the last couple hours. So hopefully the momentum carries over. You're able to switch it over to the high setting. But right now I have JWill as low.
I have him as low as well. Like, there's enough things about his game where it's going to be pretty variable. Like, if he's not hitting his threes and he's not drawing charges or blocking shots, like he still does other things, not to like make him this one-dimensional player on each end. But if his threes aren't falling, we saw it against the Pelicans game in the play-in last year. It was like 0 for 5 to start the game from 3, and it was like, it's not really the kind of guy going out there right now. I think there's some.
I think he ended that game like 8-8 though.
He ended up what?
I think he ended that Pelicans game in the play-in 8 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists.
He may have, and that's my point. I'm not making this one-dimensional player, but when he was 0 for 5, you're thinking, man, like this is hurting the team a bit. I think that he's what he provides is something that's variable game to game. Like it's not consistent. Like a really good passer, they're not going to have like an off passing night. They're going to get you assists. Like a really good rebounder, Andre Drummond, he may have a horrible game shooting from the floor, make bonehead decisions. He's going to get you rebounds. JWill, I just think what he provides is hit and miss just by the nature of what he does. A 3-point shooter, a taking charges, blocking shots on occasion. So that's why I'm not putting him high, because I think that a week from today on a Sunday pod, I guess it wouldn't be a week, it'd be more than a week. Like we may be saying JWill is not in the 9-man rotation, or we could be saying, man, he keeps doing it. Like it's too variable still for me to go high.
That's fair. I'm going to take the alternate route here. I am going to go high because of the trend that I currently see, not projecting out, but what I've currently seen, especially since the All-Star break. I got the stats here for you guys. since the break. It's only 7 games, but he's averaging 5 points on 52% from the floor, 50% from 3 on two attempts a game, 4.5 rebounds, 1.5 assists, a little over half a block a game. He's a plus 9.9. That's all in less than 14 minutes a game. I think the variable thing for him is matchup. Like if the Thunder see the Golden State Warriors in round 1, I don't see him playing a lot because he's like strictly a drop big and he'll get killed. If they play the Kings in round 1, I think JWill could play 25 minutes a night. And Nick, I'm totally with you on the production is sometimes up and down. But what's not up and down is the energy and the spark. That when he comes in, he brings an energy that kind of uplifts the team.
Yeah.
The block shots recently have been awesome. And we've seen it a few times. We haven't seen it much. I know Taylor got drug on the internet earlier this season for mentioning it. But we haven't seen it a ton. But we've seen it a bit with this 2 big lineup with he and Chet. I wonder if they're just
I've
collecting
got
a
those
little bit of
stats
data
now
points.
if you'd like them.
Yeah, sure.
So this is from my buddy Joey Cogner, who sent this to me yesterday. I had to do some digging. But on the season, for the 2 big lineup and JWill and Chet, they have those lineups have a 14.8 net rating. For comparison, the Celtics, one of the best teams in the league, have an 11.2 net rating. They have a 57.6 rebound percentage. One of the best rebounding teams in the league, the Knicks, have a 52.8% rebounding percentage. They have an 11.6 turnover percentage. The Sixers, who don't turn over the ball much at all, have a 12% turnover percentage. And then finally, the one that sticks out to me the most, they have a 65.1% true shooting percentage. For the season, the Thunder have a 61.1% true shooting percentage. Very good stats for the 2 big man lineup there. Although in the small sample size.
Yeah, small sample, but I love what I've seen from that sample. And it's just kind of hard to score inside when those 2 are playing. Like JWill can bruise, he can draw the charge. If you're worried about drawing the charge and you go in there lightly, Chet will rotate over and block it. If you go in there strong to try to get through Chet, JWill will slide in front of you and take the charge. I kind of like that duo. Interesting to see what it looks like as we move forward. Nick, lead us off with this next one. We only have a few left. Let's go Isaiah Joe. Temperature check on Isaiah Joe. Cold, low, warm, or high for Isaiah Joe?
I'm still low, like cooking, like still trending up. I know we talked about some pretty poor stats over the last handful of games for him, but I think he's too good a shooter to continue this. And like this, to me, this is his like valley, if you will. Like this is buying the dip on Isaiah Joe, and I just think it's we could change tune very quickly on his impact once his 3 start falling.
If this is the low point for Joe, you're pretty happy.
Yeah, no, exactly. For the same reasons that you mentioned, Nick, I have him as keep warm on the setting, just because he's keeping warm. It's not like he's been a negative for this team, but I think we're going to see him start to trend upward again, which is why I will bump him up to that low cooking setting. And hopefully come playoff time, he has some huge gains for us that we can turn it all the way up to high.
I like that. I'm probably going to go at, we're not cooking anymore. We're just keeping it warm. It's staying level. If this was the shooting performance last year, it would be cold. But this year, he's become so much more of a rounded player that he's not just defined by his 3-point shooting. Like he's had some really impressive defensive plays recently. He gets going to the basket. He's had some good passes. Like he's doing so much more than just shooting the 3 ball for this team that I think it's working out really well for them. So that's why I would just keep him at warm for right now. Nick, 2 more left. The next one, let's go Cason Wallace.
Man, I don't like giving out the top of the top, but I think there's a guy that you got to give it to. It's probably Cason. I give him the high setting. Just like his box score stats do not tell the full story. Like if you're if you're trying to think of a good example, if you're a Rockets fan and you're trying to make the case for Amin Thompson or Cam Whitmore to be a first or second team All-NBA, and you're making the case, Jesus, yes, all rookie. And you're looking at stats, like you might suggest that one of your two guys might be higher than Isaiah Joe based on box score for sure. But then if you actually look at like when he makes
Cason
his
Wallace.
impact, Cason Wallace, all rookie. Yes. I think that he makes big threes in big moments. He makes defensive stops in big moments. He elevates the play. Like this, it's the same as Chet, where it's like, are his stats better than Wemby? No. And I don't think Chet should be rookie of the year for clarity. But Isaiah Joe's impact on winning, and he's overshadowed. Gee, and I need to stop talking. Cason Wallace's impact on winning is remarkable, and it gets overshadowed by Chet. And I think that for all those reasons, like he is on the highest setting for me.
I like David's comment in the chat. He says, if Nick were a teacher, he's the guy that never gives out 100%.
That's so true.
You can never be perfect.
No.
Love it. I just gave out completion grades. Don't tell my former employers that.
You did the work.
Taylor, where are you at on Cason Wallace?
Yeah, I'd
Not
have
Isaiah
him,
Joe.
Not Isaiah Joe. I'd have him at the highest setting as well. He is starting to come to a simmer. He is playing really well. We're seeing him kind of come into form here as a rookie, which is in a critical role player for the Thunder team off the bench. So I have him at the highest setting.
I agree. Crank that bad boy up. We're about to take Isaiah Joe. God, now Nick's got me doing it. You son of a gun. We're going to take Cason Wallace out of the crock pot. We're flash frying that bad boy. The crock pot doesn't get hot enough. I mentioned earlier, I just over the moon with Cason. He's been freaking awesome.
He's awesome.
Quick, I know we're going a little over time. I got to get an aside in here. Quick question, just because I think it's a fun one. I've been cooking up in my head. Who are some guys that Thunder could target this summer? Yeah, cooking in the crock pot, the old crock pot dome up here. Who are some guys that Thunder could get over the summer? They're going to have all this cap space. They can make a lopsided trade. Just follow my logic for a moment. Timberwolves make it as the 2 seed in the Western Conference playoffs. They lose in 5. They owe first round. They owe a metric crap ton of money to their team next year. Like they're going to be like one of the highest like spending teams, including luxury tax in the league. They realize we got to make a move. We got to make a trade. Not saying this is like going to happen. Not saying it makes sense. Don't poke holes in it. Just tell me if you do the trade or not. Draft night, they call up Sam Presti. They say, hey, you've got pick 8 in this draft from the Houston Rockets. We want pick 8. We want a future pick. We want Cason Wallace. In return, we will send you out the guy that we just signed to a long-term extension, Jaden McDaniels.
Not for all of that. We got Jaden McDaniels at home, who's a little more versatile, not quite as big.
Who?
Cason Wallace.
Oh, wow. That's not quite as big, only
despite the
7 inches shorter.
Yeah.
Long wingspan.
I think I need to see Case in the playoffs before I give
Make
a
that
real
decision?
answer there. But
Okay.
like, I think it's interesting. Like, it's not an overwhelming no. Yeah.
I think that's a lot for McDaniels. 2 future first. Are you saying just like maybe another second? And
No, it's the pick, whatever the Rockets pick is this year, as long as
Right.
it doesn't get protected. God, if they jump in the lottery,
no kidding.
I'm gonna come on the post lottery stream with a gun.
This is the second straight podcast you've said that.
Yep.
I think our listeners are getting concerned.
I'm gonna head down to the fairgrounds. Good old gun show.
Gosh. Okay.
For the gun
Good.
show.
Glad
the
you
gun show, Taylor.
clarified. Glad you clarified.
I think it's an interesting one. Cason, like pick 8 and like a future first rounder from you got 17 of them. Take your freaking choice, right?
I think it also depends who's there at 8. Like I would argue Ron Holland can be Jaden McDaniels at 8 if he's there.
For sure. I would also argue that Jaden McDaniels could come in and impact winning like day one he's here, but you have less of a runway with him.
He's expensive too.
Yes,
that's the money. So.
Just a fun hypothetical there.
Is that your new Denny? You're gonna be talking about him for the next year?
Hey, brother, I got a list, and the future power forward of the Oklahoma City Thunder. We saw him play in Oklahoma City last night. My boy Jarris Walker.
Oh, good luck.
They better finally play him next season. But I agree.
Last guy on the list for the crock pot. Didn't Migos famously talk about a crock pot?
Cooking up dope in the crock pot?
Yeah.
Raindrop.
I don't think this guy's cooking dope in the crock pot, but we're tossing him in there anyways. Aaron Wiggins.
He's still a warm for me. Like he's been phenomenal. Like probably the most impactful player that the average NBA fan doesn't know about in the entire league.
Nick, you and I have been saying it. If he played for the Los Angeles Lakers, he would be like, this guy's 6th man of the year. Everyone needs to trade for him. Unsung hero of the team. Like,
yeah,
he flies under the radar a lot.
He does. He's really good. I'm not going to put him at high. I'm going to put him at low. Like he's cooking. He's trending up. He's awesome. He impacts winning, no doubt, but he's not like so impressive that I'm ready to like crank it all the way. Like he's not playing 35 minutes and averaging, crazy numbers. And like, he has been the difference in many games, that he's not like the guy that closes it and wins it for you. He's like helping you do that, but like, so he's very impressive and he's a low for me. Like cook it on low.
I agree with that. I like even recently, he had a really good stretch here not too long ago where there was like talk of, okay, if J-Dub is going to be out or a certain player is going to, or even Josh Giddey's not playing well, throw Aaron Wiggins out there in the starting lineup. And I think those arguments had some validity to them. That being said, as of late, he's looked a little more back down to earth, maybe is the term I would use there. So I have him as low as well because he's everything you would want in like a spark off the bench, a perfect role player. But at the same time, to Nick's point, we haven't really seen him exceed that yet, which is why I don't think we can put him all the way up at high like a Cason Wallace.
Fair. I'm going to go just keep it warm. He's not really cooking right now. I think he was, and now the trend is like kind of like leveled off.
Yep.
The thing that impresses me the most about him, guys, is his ability to finish at the rim. Like he doesn't have all these crazy finishing packages like Shea or whoever, J-Dub, but he like never misses at the rim. He's got great athleticism. He gets up really high. He gets through guys and just like the finger roll. He never really goes to the floater. He's just, anytime he drives to the basket, I feel incredibly confident that the layup is going in, regardless of who he's going up against. And that's like a really valuable skill. Like I think that's really undersold about him.
Agreed.
All right. We're going to put the crock pot up for now. We had a nice little tasty meal. Maybe we'll bust it out closer to the NBA playoffs. Who knows? Hey, thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Uncontested tonight. Can't thank you enough. Again, if you were in the live stream, and there was a lot of you, thanks so much for your comments, your questions. Make sure to hit that like button before you log off tonight. It would help us out a lot. If you're watching the YouTube video after the fact, not live, drop a little comment. Let us know your thoughts. Also hit that like button. And if you're a podcast listener like I am, make sure to drop that 5-star rating if you haven't yet. Write a little review. We've had a few come through. They make my day every time I see them. Means a lot to us. Helps more people see the podcast. So thank you guys so much. Thunder take on the Dallas Mavericks at 9 p.m. Central Time.
Late game.
Thursday night. Means we won't be getting out of there till 11:30. I think we have a post-game scheduled. Might have to get pushed back to like Friday morning. We'll see. because
Are
it
you
is
going, Jacob? You said we won't be getting out there until later. Are you going?
my father and I will be there together.
Awesome.
The man took Friday off because Nate, nobody trying to wake up that early. Nick will
Yeah, I
be
was
there
about to
tomorrow
say.
night.
Mhm.
And then the three
Covering
of
the
us
game.
visiting podcast sponsor Dave's Hot Chicken on Friday for lunch.
Pump.
Cannot
be
wait.
good. Make sure to eat Dave's or eat Spark on your way to the Thunder game Thursday night. We will talk to you soon. Until then, and as always, Thunder up.